The anime begins with Momo Ayase, a girl in the high school, breaks up with her boyfriend after he asks her for money and suggests they stay night at a hotel. Upset by his selfish behavior, she tries to kick him, ending their relationship. Heartbroken, she talks to her friends, who mock her for liking him just because he resembled her favorite actor, Ken Takakura. Momo realizes they might be right, but still feels down. Later, as Momo walks through the school, she notices a boy being bullied in a classroom. Deciding to help, she sits at his desk and glares at the bullies until they leave. The boy later approaches her to thank her and starts talking about aliens and UFOs nonstop. Annoyed by his chatter, Momo says she doesn't care about aliens, mentioning she believes in ghosts instead. The boy laughs at her belief, sparking an argument. Momo defends her stance by sharing that her grandmother was a spirit medium. The boy dismisses her claims, but proposes they investigate to see who's right. That night, Momo heads to Nagi Hospital, rumored to be linked to alien sightings, while the boy, nicknamed Occult Kun, goes to a haunted tunnel. Over the phone, Momo tells Occult Kun about her past. She resented her grandmother for making her perform a public ritual that caused boys to bully her. She hated the boy she liked even more when he mocked her, but over time, she forgave her grandmother and began to appreciate her spiritual abilities. Meanwhile, Occult Kun encounters a terrifying ghost called Turbo Granny, who tries to curse him. Panicked, he flees while calling Momo for help. At the hospital, Momo is suddenly captured by aliens. They restrain her and reveal their intention to extract her reproductive organs. Just as the aliens begin using their psychic powers to immobilize her, Turbo Granny appears, now possessing Occult Kun's body. The ghost attacks the aliens, giving Momo a chance to fight back. Momo remembers her grandmother's teachings and performs a ritual to awaken her psychic powers. She breaks free from the aliens and defeats them with a powerful kick. Turbo Granny warns Momo that Occult Kun is cursed and that they must confront her again to lift it. After surviving the ordeal, Momo and Occult Kun start to believe in both ghosts and aliens. Occult Kun insists on dealing with the curse alone to protect Momo, but she refuses to let him go alone. Before they part ways, Momo learns his real name is Ken Takakura, leaving her stunned but determined to stay by his side. That was the first episode. But before passing to the second one, like the video and subscribe to the channel to be an OG, and tell me in the comments if there is any anime or show that you want me to recap in the future. Let's move on to the second episode. In the second episode, Momo reassures Okarun that she's willing to stay involved with him despite his connection to her favorite idol, Ken Takakura. She refuses to let him use his real name and starts calling him Okarun, a nickname he reluctantly accepts. To pass the time until nightfall, Momo invites him over to her place. When Okarun tries to pass through her torii gate, his body bursts into flames, causing Momo to use her psychic powers to save him by throwing him into the nearby river. She realizes the talisman on the gate, meant to ward off evil spirits, was the cause and removes it to let him through safely. Afterward, she laughs at Okarun's hair, now resembling an old lady's perm from the fire. Once inside, Okarun is upset to discover his genitals are missing, and Momo reminds him that it was a result of his own actions. He confesses he didn't want to lose the chance to make a friend, and fears he'll never be able to. Momo reassures him, saying the real problem is his unintentional isolation, and expresses her willingness to discuss the paranormal with him. Okarun is moved, but his response is rude, frustrating Momo. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and Momo suspects it's an evil spirit, as her house has two chimes, one for humans and one for spirits. She realizes the evil spirit entered because she removed the talisman. The two go outside to put it back, but the area around the gate has changed. A wall blocks their way, and the black mist makes their noses bleed. They encounter a giant who accuses them of breaking a promise and intends to take their banana organs. They flee from the giant's stomps, which Okarun identifies as the Flatwoods monster, while Momo believes it's connected to the Serpos. They realize they can't fight it while Okarun is cursed, but Okarun suggests Momo suppress Turbo Granny's curse on him to help him regain control. When the monster attacks again, Momo follows his instructions. Okarun manages to dodge and even bite off the monster's fingers. However, Okarun begins to bleed from his mouth due to the strain on his body, and Momo moves him to safety. Momo notices the monster fights like a sumo wrestler and proposes a plan to defeat it by forcing it to touch the ground. Using her psychic powers, she suppresses Okarun's curse and helps him shatter the monster's leg. They harm the monster, but it grows extra legs to stay upright and slams Momo into the wall. Momo continues to suppress Okarun's curse while being beaten, but she refuses to give up. Eventually, she uses the monster's attack to create a hole in the wall, allowing her to put the talisman back in place. This results in the monster being incinerated, and they return to the real world. Relieved, Momo notices Okarun's hair has changed again, this time to a messy look she finds cute. Exhausted from the battle, Momo collapses, and Okarun falls victim to Turbo Granny's curse, as Momo's powers are no longer there to suppress it. Now to the third episode. In a live broadcast, a psychic named Santa Dodoria gives a reading for a celebrity, but is frequently corrected. After the show, she takes a taxi home, but decides to walk the rest of the way, worried the driver may face danger if they continue. Before Turbo Granny can attack Momo, her grandmother arrives and sets the spirit on fire using a brick inscribed with a nail and a protective circle. Declaring a duel, her grandmother traps Turbo Granny with a barrier and burns her whenever she tries to escape. Turbo Granny warns that killing her will harm Okarun, but Momo's grandmother refuses to show mercy. Using a second trap, she defeats Turbo Granny with a final fiery attack. Momo wakes up at home and finds her grandmother watching TV. Concerned about Okarun, she questions her grandmother, who reveals she sealed him in the shrine. Rushing outside, Momo is relieved to find Okarun safe, but slams the door in frustration. Her grandmother teases her about her feelings for him and explains Turbo Granny's newfound power, cautioning against further conflict. Despite the warning, Momo insists on helping Okarun. Her grandmother devises a plan to weaken Turbo Granny by luring her out of the city through a game of tag. During training, Momo suppresses Okarun's curse, but struggles with precision. Her grandmother advises using touch instead of sight to control her powers. Turbo Granny briefly possesses Okarun and threatens to kill anyone he sees unless Momo faces her that night. Before leaving, Momo's grandmother gives them protective clothing and prays for their safety. On the train, Momo silently vows revenge for her grandmother's injury, while Okarun tries to hide his embarrassment over their outfits. Episode 4 now. Momo and Okarun cautiously enter Turbo Granny's tunnel, strategizing their confrontation with the evil spirit. Momo reassures Okarun, noting that this battle should be less challenging than their previous encounter with the Flatwoods monster. However, their confidence is shaken when they discover Turbo Granny's enormous head blocking both the entrance and exit of the tunnel. Momo uses her psychokinetic powers to control bats and launches an attack, but Turbo Granny easily destroys them with her eye-like mouths. Desperate, Momo urges Okarun to use Turbo Granny's power, but Turbo Granny unexpectedly returns Okarun's genitals, stripping him of the cursed power. Turbo Granny prepares to consume them from both ends, but Momo recalls her grandmother's advice and dares Turbo Granny to a game of tag, exploiting the spirit's overconfidence in her speed. Intrigued, Turbo Granny halts her attack and accepts the challenge. Turbo Granny begins counting to 10 minutes to give them a head start, but Momo is quickly captured as the spirit counts in an unusual pattern to reach 10. Okarun protests, accusing her of cheating, but Turbo Granny smugly explains that the terms of the challenge did not specify how to count. As Okarun panics, Turbo Granny finishes her countdown and prepares to attack. With no solid plan, Okarun bites Turbo Granny's chest in desperation, catching her off guard. Unable to dislodge him due to his clothing, Turbo Granny decides to fully possess him. Just as she moves to devour Momo, Momo remembers her grandmother's lesson about controlling energy through touch and traps Turbo Granny's aura within Okarun. Turbo Granny, in an attempt to break free, destroys the confinement, but Momo's quick actions ensure Okarun's safety. As they celebrate their escape, a new threat emerges, the earthbound spirit crab, which saves Turbo Granny and begins chasing Momo and Okarun. Okarun, empowered by Turbo Granny's speed, carries Momo on his back as they flee through the town. The spirit is invisible to the public, but its destructive presence leaves chaos in its wake. When Okarun tires, Momo devises a plan to lead the spirit to a hot spring. She uses her psychokinesis to direct a pipe of boiling water onto the spirit, briefly slowing it down. Their relief is short-lived, as they are cornered by possessed townspeople, controlled by spirits, summoned by Turbo Granny and the earthbound spirit crab. Turbo Granny declares her intent to prevent their escape from Shono City. Okarun uses his cursed speed to evade the horde, carrying Momo through the chaos. However, the strain causes Momo to release her control over Turbo Granny's curse, allowing her to re-emerge. Turbo Granny merges with the earthbound spirit crab, turning the situation dire. She proposes another game, offering Momo a few seconds to run. Momo boldly claims she needs only 1 second and uses her psychokinesis to latch onto a passing train. Turbo Granny gives chase, catching up as the train slows at a curve. However, Momo reveals that her grandmother had set a spiritual trap along the railway, leading to Kamikoshi City. With her psychokinesis, Momo restrains Turbo Granny long enough for the trap to activate, exorcising the spirit. As the exorcism unfolds, Momo sees several schoolgirls' spirits emerge from the earthbound spirit crab. Back at the tunnel, Momo, Okarun, and her grandmother honor the spirits. The grandmother reveals the tunnel's dark history as a site where young girls were murdered and explains that Turbo Granny had tried to comfort the restless spirits. She teaches Momo about coexistence with spirits and expresses relief that Momo is unharmed. Later, at dinner, Okarun joins Momo and her grandmother. The meal humorously devolves into a squabble over the crab they're eating, and Okarun feels embarrassed when Momo's grandmother jokingly insists on confirming the return of his genitals. As Okarun prepares to leave on his bike, Momo bids him farewell. However, reflecting on the word goodbye, she changes her parting words, promising to meet him again tomorrow. This reassurance brings comfort to Okarun as he departs. That was the first part of the DanDaDan recap. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any news. And goodbye.